Welcome to another repair video with Mr. Box Office Studios Kenya. We are a production company specializing in live multi-camera events productions for recording, streaming, IMAG for conferences, conventions, concerts, sports, school functions, and the likes. Today we have a faulty Yolobox Pro unit that needs a power switch replacement. This is a common problem with this particular model because of this is a design problem that I find with this particular model, with how the power button is designed and that there is no way of countering the force exerted on the switch when it's being powered on. So if you press this button hard, it will break, and this is the second unit I have received from a viewer, and we will be replacing the power switch. Unscrew the heatsink and the fan that lies on top of your processor. If you notice that there's some displacement of the thermal paste, you might need to replace that because it's very crucial to dispersing heat from your processor. And the Yolobox Pro is a very intense unit. It needs adequate cooling, so be very careful when putting those back. Then you will need to take off your battery. Be very careful not to puncture the cabling or to damage the connector. That will be a whole other set of problems if you do that. As you can see, the design of the switch is very fragile, and that the switch is perpendicular to where it's soldered on the motherboard, and any above normal amount of pressure tends to bend and break off the switch. So first, what you need to do is to verify that your positive and negative terminals are still intact and that you don't have a dry joint. So the best way to do that is to use a digital multimeter with your positive probe on ground and your negative on one of the terminals. So for the positive terminal, it will give you a resistance reading, and the ground will give you a continuity. So once you have your two solder points, you have a working switch and you can proceed. If you don't have both positive and negative terminals, you may need to dig into the motherboard to retrieve them, or use a jumper cable from the nearest solder point to the dry joints. You'll have to take off the original power switch because we don't need that anymore. We are going to be installing a much steady and rugged switch that will outlast this one, and to my design it's more superior to what was initially there. So I normally get a couple of switches just to have spares, and if need be I might need to replace one that I was currently replacing. So this is how the switch looks. It's called a reset switch. They are commonly found in spare shops. You can get one with a relatively small profile so that it doesn't stick too far out from your Yolobox. First, we need to solder two jumper cables that will carry the positive and negative signals to your switch. So the switch has 4 solder points, but we only need 2. The other 2 will be used to anchor the switch firmly on the casing. Then you can drill 4 holes where the 4 supporting terminals will go through. Then you can bend them from the other side for maximum support. And that's how you get the best possible switch. No matter the amount of force we exert on this one, it cannot break, and I find it to be the best solution to this problem. From there, you can solder your jumper cables from 2 terminals of the switch to the 2 terminals that we initially identified on the motherboard. So the switch will act as a short circuit to the motherboard that will communicate a press or a long press, just as the original switch. So you can solder the positive to one terminal of the button and the negative to the other terminal of the button, and you'll have a working switch. And there you go. So let's have a test, and the switch works perfectly. So press once to send a command, press once to send another command. You can long press to switch off or restart your unit. I like to use a glue stick to firmly hold the cables in place and to prevent any type of corrosion to those 2 terminals. It's just a small measure that adds to the longevity of that installation. And if you have a unit that needs repair, this particular service goes for $50. You can send your units to us, just like this one. That is not inclusive of transport and shipping. I also apply glue stick residue on the outside. This will help the 2 exposed terminals on the outside not to be short-circuited by anything, either moisture, water, or anything. It's just a nice precaution to do. Just make sure any exposed opening, any exposed solder points are well covered with the glue sticks. It works pretty well and keeps the switch nice and safe. Till the next repair, subscribe.